You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is April the 6th, 2020. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
Thank you for saying the date, Carl. I genuinely don't even know what day it is.
I said April and had to second guess myself. I said the 6th and also second guess myself. I also second guessed the year, Nick.
That's one where we're just... That's one I can't forget. I will never forgive 2020 for this.
2020, right? It's quite the time. Quite the things are happening. We're back for another week. We do have a very fun show planned because, Nick, we've got some very exciting news. We're going to keep that in the hopper, though, for a little bit.
Whoa. Just tease it out a little bit.
Just tease it out, right? We've got that coming up. First, what I want to get to, there is an initiative that got me thinking this week, Nick. And a company called Podchaser, right? They aggregate podcasts. They started a thing where they are doing reviews. So if you go to Podchaser, do a review of the Fourth Line Podcast. We're always, not always, oftentimes at the end we say, hey, if you like the show, give us a review. Today we're doing it at the front because for every review that you do, they're donating money to Meals on Wheels.
What a great idea.
Fantastic idea, which got me thinking, Nick, and until hockey is back, all the proceeds that we would normally have from our sponsorship, right? Park Power has been powering us for so long. We're going to give those we're going to split it. One in Calgary for an initiative similar to Meals on Wheels. The one I have in mind is called Brown Bagging for Calgary Kids. So kids who normally would be getting meals in school, they're getting meals from this group. We're going to donate that money to there. And I don't know if you have offhand a group in Toronto that you think of. I mean, Toronto Food Bank would probably be a great one.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that. I'll come up with one, though, for sure.
But
I love this.
That's what we're doing. So because we put a lot of this, everything we get goes right back into this show. So that means that we get to be able to watch hockey, right? We get to be able to send stuff out to you. We get to be able to buy things that we can send out to you. And in this kind of a time, it's time for us to give back to our communities, Nick. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So thank you for tuning in, because if you don't tune in, then they don't want to sponsor us. And if they don't sponsor us, then we can't give back to the community. So for you listening right now, thank you very much. You've done your part. But also, if you want to, go to Podchaser, leave us a review, 5-star review preferably, and they'll donate money to Meals on Wheels as well. So you'll be able to go the extra mile for them. So,
but to be clear, they'll donate for any star review.
Yeah. But let's be honest, Nick, I did check it out to see, because, we posted it. And I've never really done that. I've never really plugged the Podchaser reviews. But since we have, 100% of the reviews are 5 stars. So.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So thank you to those who already have. Thank you to those who will. And we've got a show for you this week, Nick. Before we get to the rest of the show, we've got a little reminder of everyone. They've been powering the elimination station up until now, but last week we finished the elimination station. And thus, Park Power is now powering the entire Fourth Line Podcast. Thank you to Park Power for supporting the show, supporting the Alberta Podcast Network, and making sure that the lights stay on here. And I guess, since I talked about it, supporting these initiatives in our communities, Nick. So head to ParkPower.ca where you can get your utilities, a fantastic group that even if they don't know that they're supporting charities through this show today, but they already are doing it themselves. So Park Power is super easy to use. If you are in need of utilities or you're just looking for a better deal than what you currently have, head to ParkPower.ca where they can give you a quote and set you up over there. All right, Nick. I mentioned it. I teased it. It's been minutes since I did. Last week, it was not even 2 hours after we finished recording the show that you messaged me with the news.
I did some more digging and I found it, Carl. I found the script. Now, it was a little bit of false hope because when I opened it and started going through it, it was only the first half of it. So I must have only saved the first half on my computer and then finished it on the cloud because whatever's on the cloud is gone. But I have the first 15 pages.
And what you have is certainly enough for us to dive into the world of Paul, the Bruins, and the rest of what's happening.
Did you read it?
I read enough that I know what's happening so that today we can take a dive in, go through it. But as the author, what would you say is the best way for us to explore this?
Oh man,
pilot?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think we should read it word for word. But we can certainly try to get into some of the scenes and explain what's going on. I mean, I'm also happy to, if people are into this, do some sort of like community story editing where we share the script with some listeners if they want to kind of help build out the second half of this thing. Like, I'm open to anything at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's start there. Set the table, Nick. When you imagine this, what is the opening scene of this show?
Okay, so before I get into the opening scene, I think I explained this last week. This is mockumentary style. So think The Office, think Trailer Park Boys, which is really, I think, when you read the script, the Trailer Park Boys thing comes through. So the show opens, interior, Paul's garage, day. Paul tears the tarp off of what looks like a car in the garage, but it's a hockey workshop. Skate sharpening, stick rack, etc. Paul explains that hockey season is about to start. It's another chance to win it all. So this is kind of how it starts. And then it cuts to an interview with Paul's wife. And in the background, he's playing road hockey with his two kids, and he's the goalie. And I wrote this line, when Marie, that's his wife, when Marie talks, she's trying to convince herself as much as the audience. And her line is, Paul's great. He's part of the cleanup crew at the university. And while she's describing kind of what he's like, and she says he's great with the kids, he's always teaching them and being kind to them, in the background, he starts yelling at the kids to stop taking slap shots. But one of the kids takes a slap shot. So he screams at him, runs after him, and tackles him and jerseys him in the background while she's talking about how great he is with the kids.
So I imagine, like in my head going through this, because this is the same thing. What Nick's gone through is what he gave me as well. So I don't have I'm trying to imagine in my head what these families are like. I imagine like suburbs.
Yeah.
I imagine a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
I've got Marie is like a very well put together lady, and Paul's got like a permanent 5 o'clock shadow.
That's right. But a more prominent mustache.
Yeah. Like disheveled hair, and probably like always wearing either like an 80s band shirt or a jersey.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
And like an old pair of Levi's.
That's right. That describes those characters very well.
Excellent. And how old are the kids in this?
The kids are 12. I think I said the oldest one later on in the script. The oldest one is 12, and the other one is much younger. I'd say 8 or 9.
Okay.
So they're young kids. Lots of energy.
Lots. Did you have a name for this at the time?
For the show?
For the show, yeah.
It was just going to be called The Beer League.
Oh, right. We talked about that. Yeah. The Beer League. Yeah. Okay. So we're what, 2 minutes in. we've discovered that Paul's living the dream out of his garage.
Pretty much.
His wife's doing the best she can. And he is a mediocre at best father.
At best. Like, he's playing with the kids, so he tries, right? Like, he's trying, and he loves them, but he just has no patience. And the second that slap shot hits him in the gut, he loses it.
I don't think anyone would be super happy about that.
No. But Paul reacts worse than most of us would.
All right, so that's the scene, right? We've got Paul, and then so now we start to figure out a little bit of like what else he does, right?
That's right. So we follow him into his basement, and he's kind of walking us through his basement. It's like the true definition of a man cave. Like, the walls are like either a deep red or a deep blue. There's some sort of like jersey color pattern going on. He's got jerseys framed and hanging on the walls, but they're not jerseys and newspaper cutouts of his idols. They're of him and his teams as he was growing up. So he explains that he's played hockey all of his life, and he made the AAA travel team at 11 years old. But when he was 12, he had to hang up the skates because he blew out his knee. So he walks us through, and he gets to the Bruins jersey, which is the jersey for his current team. And he explains that it's still in use, but he likes to frame it in the off season just in case he dies or something. It'll be forever immortalized. So then it gets a little slapsticky where he goes to take the jersey off the wall, loses his balance, he falls, the frame shatters, and he picks through the glass and puts the jersey on and smiles at the camera.
Nice. What number would you say Paul wears?
Oh, good question. That's something that like I should have built out as part of this. It would definitely be like his birth year.
Okay.
Which I don't know at this point. I'm not going to do that math.
Yeah, I mean, we can figure that out in the future, but that's a good way to come up with that.
I think so.
Or
plus, like you kind of get the sense through the scene that he just really loves himself and he thinks very highly of himself.
Yeah. See, and that's what I kind of imagine. I imagine like my thought was that it's someone like much better than him that he's like, this is who I am as a player. And that's how he picks it, right? Someone not appropriate for his actual skill level.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's good. We've got Paul. He's got his jersey on. And I do enjoy the fact that he always wants to have it lined up there. The one difference between how you describe this, and I do like it, I imagine that he had wood panel walls in the basement.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, that works too.
Yours is nice though. I like the like even like the jersey paint on the wall is good.
Yeah.
It's like and black and gold in the basement.
Yeah, exactly. Like it totally matches the jersey patterns.
That's good. All right, so from there, Paul is what's next for Paul? He's got his jersey. It must be time for the season to start then.
Yeah, I mean, it's hot. We saw him in the very first scene going into the garage, pulling the tarp off the workshop. Like, the season's right around the corner. So in the very next scene, he's in the garage taping a stick, and a car pulls into the driveway, and it's Greg, and Greg is his assistant captain. We talked about him last week, I think. And Greg asks, hey, what's with the cameras here? And Paul explains that it's his cousin's son, Freddie. He's a film student, and he needed a theory project. So he's going to be documenting their season. And he tells Fred to say hi to Greg's. And Fred from off screen, you never really see Fred. He's just a voice from off screen, tells him that it's a thesis project, not a theory project, you idiot. And because he called him an idiot, Paul gets all riled up again, grabs him from behind the camera and shirts him.
I enjoy that already. He has one move. He will use it on anyone, especially those younger than him.
Oh, especially. It's the classic like hockey fight move. Just pull the shirt over the head.
Yeah.
That's all he knows how to do. Anything more than that, he loses his balance probably.
Well, yeah, he has one move, and is that anything, including taking something off the wall, is gonna go bad for him. So
yeah. Okay, so this next exchange, Carl, made me really happy when I read it because it's so relevant to this show since I started coming on and recording with you. So Greg is now doing an interview with the camera, and he explains that Paul is their captain, but he's also their coach. He's their player coach.
Yeah, I loved that. How long ago did you write this?
I don't know how I honestly don't know. This was 3 or 4 years ago I wrote this.
Yeah. So even back then, you've always had a love for the player coach.
I've been obsessed with them. I've always wanted to see one.
You're good.
So then Freddie off screen says, "Oh, like Paul Newman," and he goes, "Yeah, like Paul Newman." Wait, who's Paul Newman? He goes from Slapshot. And the guy goes, "What, did he win the Norris Trophy or something?" Just getting the sense of like this beer league team, not the brightest bunch.
No.
All right, where do we go from here?
Well, it must be time for them to head off, right? So they're
going to practice.
You imagine them going to practice. What I assume like bags in the back of an old truck? Do they have a station wagon? I assume that Greg's putting so much time and money into this team that he does, or Paul rather, that he's really letting everything else slide. Oh,
big time. I imagine like an old minivan, like probably a little rust around the edges of the doors. Definitely not clean on the inside. Probably the back seats are just out completely.
I was going to say no back seats.
No back seats. You can actually probably see them against the wall in the garage or something.
He's probably turned them into that's what his skate sharpeners are put on top of. Like he doesn't have a bench. It's the van seats.
That's right. And that would drive his wife nuts.
Because it's also the family van.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I love this part because it's two separate interviews. One with Paul where he says once a month he rents out the ice for the team. It doesn't cost them anything and it keeps the team morale up. And then it's with Marie, his wife, who says that every month he rents the ice out, but he pays for the whole thing and it all comes at his expense. So he buys the ice and buys the beer. So these two are obviously not on the same page here.
No.
And then they load an unreasonable amount of cases of beer into the trunk of his car. And I'm talking about the whole scene is just them lifting beer and loading it into the van. You don't see the hockey bags at all. It's just cases of beer.
I mean, that's why the seats are out.
So Marie does the math for us on screen. That's $400 a month that goes towards Paul and his friends. We're sending our kids to school with stolen pens from the bank and notepads from hotel lobbies.
I mean, that hit a little close to home, Nick, because, I mean, you cannot tell, but the notes that I use to write every week's show notes are on notepads from the Banff Park Lodge. And here's the problem. This one, it's done.
Last page. So I've got a sheet of cardboard to use and what's probably another half of a notepad. So, oh no. Thanks to the Banff Park Lodge for hosting a conference that I attended probably 4 years ago. And this lovely pen from, I got this at a conference too. So that's fantastic. Well, you, Carl, like Paul, have your priorities are in other places, obviously. I'm not buying fancy paper. Yeah. And neither is Paul for his kids. Someone asked me that. I don't know. People think maybe this is probably more on me. People are like, you teach. Perhaps you would like some sort of a notebook or something to take notes. I have never bought a notebook in my entire life. This notebook here from another conference I went to, Nick. It says international. Oh no, this is the Banff conference. My other notebook that I use is from that. I just went to one conference in Banff. You're really getting your mileage out of them. And now this notebook
I'm down to like the last, dozen pages, and this one I'm out of this. So please invite me back. I have nothing to present on anymore, but I'd love to be there.
I feel like notebooks are pretty standard branded items that people have made up to give away.
And it's the same thing. Like it used to be. I know when I was a kid living with my folks, the notepad in the house was we always had the realtor's face on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one should ever buy a notepad. Ever.
Totally.
Well,
we had the realtors and we had hotels too.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't go to hotels. We weren't as bougie as you were, Nick, but we just stayed at home. It was
the real like, bougie Hampton Inn.
It was like March 2020, except it was in the 90s. We just self-isolated and did our own thing.
Oh, the 90s.
Well, all right. So we've got they're off to this practice. Is that what they're doing now?
So,
or is it a game?
Yeah, no. So they're going to practice. This is before the season starts. Okay, he's getting the team together once before the season starts. They get to the arena, and Paul is immediately called into the commissioner's office. The commissioner. Do I have the description here? Where is he? The commissioner's name is Gary. He's a short man in an Italian suit with no tie. Actually, that's all I have for the description. So that's Gary, the commissioner. And as Greg explains in an interview, he's the sole cause of the 08-09 league-wide lockout. I don't know where I got inspiration from that character from, but he sounds like a jerk.
I mean, I don't know what kind of guy named Gary would just be locking out leagues all over the place.
I don't know, man. A real villain. Clearly the villain in this story.
It's true. It's nice that we already know who that is, and it's Gary.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Paul and Gary.
So Paul and Gary in Gary's office, and the cameras do not follow him in, so we're watching from like between the blinds outside the window, and they're fighting. And Gary, because the ice isn't flooded and Paul doesn't want to pay for it if it's not flooded, and Gary says, look, I'll waive the rental fee today if you get me your league fees in on time. And it turns out that the due date is today to get the league fees in. So Gary says, I need you to get your league fees in. If you don't, I'm going to cancel your team's season. So Paul goes back to the room and he tells the team, look, you guys got to get your checks in today. And then 2 or 3 of the guys come to him and say, look, I forgot my check. And he says, don't worry about it. I'll cover you. You can pay me back next week. So it's fine. And then they go out onto the ice, and this is kind of the first taste we get of the Bruins on the ice. And it's not good. It's not good at all.
Imagine they all look like me out there.
I just imagine like some of them are wearing too big of shoulder pads and too small of jerseys.
And all of them are wearing two guys are wearing not like the short pants, but like the full like Cooperalls.
Yeah, all the way down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because they've been playing hockey for like 30 years and have never upgraded their equipment.
Exactly.
Wooden sticks.
Oh, yeah.
So they start firing. They're out there while the Zamboni's still on, and they start firing pucks around. And one of them hits the Zamboni, so they get buzzed off, and they get told to get the heck out of there. Sorry, I'm like zooming through this, and I'm having a hard time even following myself. Through all of this, Paul continues to fight with the cameraman, his cousin's nephew, Freddie.
So here's one thing that I find interesting. Do you imagine that Freddie is like, is he standing on the bench when all this is happening? Like when they get to game time, where is he going to be recording from?
Well, I think this is part of the beauty from a production standpoint in that it's not going to require a huge amount of budget. Like if you think about them shooting a documentary about this team, they're not going to get on the ice with them. So Freddie's going to be recording any game time action from either behind the glass or from the bench.
Yeah.
So there's really not that much choreography required from a production standpoint.
It's true. And I do imagine with the tensions already incredibly high between Paul and Freddie, you have to imagine later in the season, he starts on the bench and gets quickly kicked off.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Through all this, we're also introduced, at least by name, to the Jagr bombs, because Gary tells Paul that he can't wait to hand over the trophy to the Jagr bombs again this year. And when Paul leaves and Gary's doing an interview, you hear from off screen, Freddie says, "Who are the Jagr bombs?" And Gary smiles and says, "They're the good guys."
All right. I like that.
So we're setting up that rivalry a little bit.
Yeah. So we've got Gary and the Jagr bombs versus the Bruins.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And like, if I'm being honest, I don't even know if all the Bruins are really on Paul's side. Paul's just super intense about it. They may not all be that intense about it.
How do you think Paul knows most of the guys on this team? Is that something that we explore throughout this whole thing? Kind of the origin story?
I think so. I think it's one of those things where like throughout the season, you kind of explore all the characters. So to me right now, this script, this pilot is about kind of setting the scene with some of the main players and main characters in the show and establishing them. And then we kind of explore how they're all connected to each other afterwards.
Like that. Because, I mean, like every beer league team, how you all came together is a weird situation, right? Because it's like, even if you're playing on a work team, not everyone's from work.
No.
So
some people invite their friend. Some people's friends invite their friend.
Yeah.
It's a weird Frankenstein experience putting together some of these beer league teams.
Exactly. Or any like recreational sports team, right?
Yeah.
I play on, don't want to brag, Nick, I play on a championship ultimate Frisbee team.
Well, don't brag then.
I won't. But what's fun about that one is that when we started the team in college, one, we were young and fast, but two, everyone was in a relationship and we're all on the team. And since then, my relationship is the only one that's still going.
Whoa, no way.
And so, and actually myself and my wife got together after the team was formed. So, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, all right, now the team is made up of just like one half of every couple.
Yeah.
To the point that like our biggest rival is an ex of someone else on the team. So, you know what? That could happen with the Jagr bombs. Maybe that's it.
I mean, those are some high stakes.
Right?
Those are some high stakes games.
I mean, maybe Marie's ex is on the Jagr bombs.
Oh, Carl, I like it. I like where your head's at.
Because Paul, I assume Paul's the jealousest of guys. Like he doesn't treat Marie well, but he doesn't want other people treating her well either.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The guy's priorities are all out of whack. He's got no patience, and he thinks way too highly of himself.
No. So, all right, let's keep going. We're just past halfway through here. What's the next big thing in this episode here?
Oh, the next big thing. So, this is Paul's watching the hockey game with his kids, and this is when Marie comes down and she's got a suitcase, and he's like, "Where are you going?" And she's like, "I'm leaving." She's like, "Kids, get up, go grab your bags. We're going." And he's like, "Well, you can't leave." And she's like, "Yes, I can." Anyway, so he kind of follows her around the house, and Freddie, of course, is there, and he gets kicked out because they're fighting, and he's like, "Can you please get out of my house? I'm trying to have a private moment with my family." So anyways, Paul explains that they have an exhibition game coming up against the Jagr bombs, and he says that if they lose, you can take the kids and go to your mother's, but if we win, you have to stay here with me. He says, "We're in for a winning season this year. I can feel it." So again, this guy, it's all about hockey. And the funny thing to me is that he thinks she shares this like priority and responsibility about hockey, but she doesn't care.
No, not in the slightest.
So she initially says, like, you haven't beat them in 3 years. You're not going to beat them. And he convinces her that he's got a ringer up his sleeve, that he knows for sure that they're going to win.
My favorite part about it is that he doesn't, again, this bumbling buffoon of Paul doesn't even know. He refers to it as a ringtone up his sleeve. I've got a ringtone up my sleeve. She's like, what the hell is a ringtone?
She goes, yeah, you mean a ringer? And he goes, yeah, a ringtone. As I was reading it, I was thinking about how he could like make sense of that in his own head. And I feel like he would say something like, it's like that guy that you call when you know he can beat the other, like that's what the ringtone is. Like someone who you can call who's going to win all the time.
Yeah. That's too good.
So
the stakes are set.
So the stakes are set. And she's like, okay, fine. I'll wait till Saturday. But the very next scene, she's doing an interview and she's like, there's no way they're going to beat the Jagr bombs. I'll be out of here in 2 days.
Yeah. Like she's not even unpacking her bag.
No, not even. So, and then we go to Paul doing an interview and he's telling the camera, like, I need to find some way to win that game. I told her that I have a ringtone, but I don't have anything at all. That's kind of about as far as I got, which is like right around the halfway mark of this thing. So obviously, the second half is going to be about them finding this ringer and convincing him to play for them and getting to the rink, and they get dressed. Obviously, these are very high stakes for Paul. And I think, at least what I have here in my notes, is that the team exits the dressing room. So we're following Paul out of the room onto the ice, and then we get a to be continued onto the screen.
Yeah. I like that. I imagine like Paul's hosting. He doesn't have enough money for more ice time. So he's hosting like street hockey tryouts, but not at his house because like he can't let Marie know he doesn't have the ringtone. So he's down at Greg's place, getting these guys to show up in their street hockey and run some tryouts for these guys.
Yeah. And then, like, I don't know what it is, but he needs to find some way to dig himself into a deeper hole by, like, promising this kid something to come play for them.
Yeah, like, it's going to be money. He's offered him money or, like, a place to stay.
Oh, my God, imagine. That might be what it is. But I want, like, in my head, this ringer was always, like junior B player who like twisted his ankle or something and his career was over.
Yeah.
So like he's still like he can't go pro, but he's still, he's that guy in beer league who just dominates all the time. And
also thinks he can still go pro.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. He has to have a flaw. He can't just be a perfect character.
Yeah. Well, and we explore that as the whole season goes. So I like this. You know what? I bet, especially right now, like you said, if there's anyone, I actually have had a couple people who have expressed interest in if we were to voice this, they'd be interested in it. So maybe we'll see what happens in the next coming weeks. Yeah, I mean, like I have some notes and some ideas on how to finish this thing. But if there are some people who are interested in doing some story editing or some outlining, like let's get together and talk about it. I'm totally fine to kind of crowdsource the second half of this thing. Let's have some fun. Yeah. So you can find, I don't know, do you want them to email or do you want to reach out on Twitter? Reach out on Twitter. Okay. Either to me personally at Nick Segan 19 or to the Fourth Line account, wherever you see this or wherever you get your content from. And I'd be happy to share what's written so far. There's a lot here that we obviously didn't cover on the show. There's a lot of one-liners and descriptions and stuff. So we'll share the script and then, maybe we'll do some chats this weekend and hammer out some story points. There you go. Well, I personally really enjoyed this. I hope everyone else enjoyed just what we have so far in the pilot of the Beer League. You heard it here first. When it shows up on Netflix in 2022, you know where it started.
And if you are a big-time Hollywood producer, remember, no choreography, very low production budget.
It's real cheap. You know what? Nick and I will even star as the extras on the team.
Yes, we will.
Well, that's good. I like that. Well, Nick, let's get to, there's even less news in the world of hockey. We've eliminated all the teams from the elimination station, but it seems like every single day I wake up and there's a sports league that's trying to make a plan about when and how they'll be back playing.
They got to do something. These Zoom meetings just aren't cutting it.
Did you see the Patrick Marleau one today?
You know what? I did, because I got a Leafs fan in the house and she was watching it. My favorite part is every time I looked over, there's another child in the frame.
They just keep showing up.
I just imagined at one point there's just like a dozen kids surrounding Patrick Marleau.
Yeah. It was just good, though. Good on him.
You know what? I will say, like, that kind of struck me a little bit as a positive that we're getting out of this whole thing, because I've noticed it at work too. There's a lot of kids at home and in the background, and it kind of humanizes the people that you work with, or the people like Patrick Marleau that you only see playing hockey or whatever. You see a different side of them when you hear them dealing with their kids in the background. Kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. It takes down a lot of our barriers, right? Like, these guys are recording from their houses because there's nowhere else for them to do it from, and you're able to see, like, at no other point in time, like, unless you're watching Cribs in 2003, you're not going to see what the inside of these guys' places look like and kind of just what they're doing. So
yeah, super interesting.
Yeah. But the NHL this week, we had a number of people with a number of ideas, Nick, on what they should do. The first one that we had late last week, PK Subban, Nick, showed up and had some ideas. His New Jersey Devils in the elimination station a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
And thus, he has decided that he would like a 31-team playoff to occur, that everyone gets a chance to win the Stanley Cup. What do you think?
Hey, man, if it gives my team a chance to win it, I'm all in. Let's do it. No, it's a terrible idea.
There is no...
Why would you do that?
It's so bad. Because first off, it's either going to take forever, or you've brought it down to like a March Madness style, just one game, winner take all.
It wouldn't be memorable at all.
No. It would be, because it would be like this one thing, but the Stanley Cup champion of that would not be held to the same standard as the rest of them.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're getting into that territory that no matter what kind of Stanley Cup champion we get this year, there will be an asterisk.
Yeah.
Asterisk.
That is a word, Nick,
asterisk.
I've learned. Asterisk.
Asterisk. No, not only one S. Asterisk. Asterisk. That's a hard word to say.
It is. I was doing some stuff at work a few years ago and had to say that word, and was doing video and like audio stuff. Real hard. Took me forever. Nonetheless. So
don't you agree though? Like, no matter what the format looks like this year?
We don't have an asterisk at the Stanley Cup winner from the lockout shortened years, though, do we?
No.
And they played even less games. Like, they only had a 48-game regular season, and we still count them.
I suppose that's true. The only asterisk I have of that year is that the Leafs made the playoffs. Asterisk. Lockout shortened season.
It's true. Yeah.
But no, you're right. That's a good point.
So I just think if we manage to get this season finished and we do have a playoff, I think that it should still count. If we're playing all of these, then it should count. But it'll be weird, mostly because it happens like in the middle. It'll certainly be memorable.
I don't know. What's your feeling on this? You think they're gonna award the Stanley Cup this year?
No.
I don't really either.
No, I think literally, one of the other good things about the low production value, Nick, is that we could still record and tape this pilot and still be within social distance and appropriate gathering amounts, because we don't need 50 people there.
That is very true.
But that's the other thing. And so teams and leagues are starting to figure it out. There was some news out of, oddly enough, our two cities this week are the two that have really definitively set the standard for what's happening. Toronto canceled all public events.
Yeah.
Calgary did the same, but were definitive in stating that Calgary Flames and Stampeders of the CFL, both of those would not be able to participate until the end of June.
Yeah.
Toronto, I believe at the time it was less clear. And then have they clarified, would professional sports be allowed?
I haven't read anything specific about that. My assumption was that they said no events of more than whatever the X amount of people was. So if you have a game where these two teams are sitting on a bench, sharing a bench and being on the court or the ice with each other, that would go against that.
Well, and that's the problem right now, because even if you were to play in Calgary, for example, or Alberta, I believe the number right now is 15 people in a gathering, which a locker room with 20 players plus coaches certainly breaks that rule. And a lot of places have that. So even if you say we're going to play without fans, in these cities and towns, you are not able to do that. So the NHL is looking, much like many people are, at the idea of a neutral site, play without fans, to try to get this thing done. They're trying to get as creative as possible, Nick. And the latest creative idea is North Dakota.
I don't know anything about North Dakota. Like, that's the most random thing that I've heard in a long time.
I mean, it's nice for the North Dakotans. North Dakota. I know that they changed their name of their college hockey team. I know that it's a pretty square-looking state, and that's about it.
Well, I know it's north of South Dakota.
Okay, I like that. It's not like, because here's the one that confuses me. I believe there's a West Virginia, but not an East Virginia.
That's correct. There's Virginia,
right,
and then there's West Virginia. But West Virginia is kind of like northwest of Virginia.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not even. So it should be Northwest Virginia, is what you're saying then.
Yeah, I mean, don't take my word from it. The history proves we are not good with geography on this podcast.
No. Here's one thing that I want to do. So I was trying to look up on the Google as we're doing this, North Dakota, like COVID laws, right?
Yeah.
But I got a something else entirely from my Google autocomplete, Nick. And this is the North Dakota covered wagon laws. So let's take this time to do a dive into the laws of North Dakota, Nick. And I feel like in a lot of places, there are laws that are still on the books that they just decided to not have. For the longest time, I'd say the biggest rumored one in Calgary is that when you get released from jail, they have to give you a horse and a gun.
That's still a law in Calgary?
Apparently. I haven't actually seen it, but that's that's the rumored one.
Right.
Again, they're not doing that, though. You don't get those. So here we go, Nick. Here is the 8 crazy laws still on the books in North Dakota.
All right.
Number 1, it is illegal to lie down and fall asleep with your shoes on.
Like anywhere?
You know what? This is all I know.
Does it specify?
Because I have that, and I have a picture of a man sleeping with his shoes on. That's all I have.
All right. Well, if you go to North Dakota, take your shoes off before going to bed.
Which is a problem because in the States, they wear their shoes inside much more than we do.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't get it.
Okay.
All right. In Fargo, North Dakota, which I think is what most people know about North Dakota, is the city and the fictionalized version of Fargo.
Of course. It's a great movie.
Fantastic. And the show is awesome too.
Yeah.
In Fargo, you may be jailed if you are wearing a hat while dancing, or if you're wearing a hat at a function where dancing is happening. So in this footloose town of North Dakota, you can be at a dance, but don't you dare wear a hat to it.
Weird. That must be some like old school, like formal wear
I would think so, yeah.
law.
Like only the real rapscallions are wearing a hat while dancing. Here's another rule, Nick, that I think would upset a lot of people. How do you feel about pretzels?
I love pretzels.
How do you feel?
Salty treats.
Like, do you prefer soft pretzels or hard pretzels?
Soft pretzels.
Soft pretzels are so good, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't tell me they're banned in North Dakota.
They're not banned, but you know what is banned? Beer and pretzels cannot be served together in any bar or restaurant in North Dakota.
But they go hand in hand.
Yep. It's true.
How do people watch baseball games in North Dakota?
Not with pretzels.
I like how that's the item that's erased from the equation.
Yeah. Well, here's the covered wagon law, which now that I've gotten to it, I wish we hadn't gone down this trail, Nick. The covered wagon law, not one that I'm really happy to talk about.
Oh, goodness.
So this one dates back a long time ago. So if you are thinking back to when the settlers came to North Dakota, when the white man showed up in North Dakota, the law is still that it is illegal to shoot someone on horseback if you are in a covered wagon. So from the safe confines of covered wagons, you are not allowed to shoot someone who is on horseback.
I feel like that would be very hard to do anyways.
It really cuts down your field of view.
Right?
Yeah.
It also doesn't sound like it's that protected, a covered wagon. Like if I'm picturing those old Western movies and shows, it's just like a tarp over a wagon.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Here's a good one. And I feel like this one's not that crazy. In Devil's Lake, North Dakota, New Year's fireworks cannot be set off after 11 p.m. So you cannot have New Year's fireworks actually at New Year's. You got to set them off early.
I guess that's for noise laws.
Yeah. And actually, here we go, Nick. These last three, I pre-read them, so I'm less surprised. These next three are really my favorite of the 8 laws.
Okay.
Rule number 6, it is illegal to keep an elk in a sandbox in your backyard.
Okay. But
And
if it's not in your backyard?
I'm just imagining, right? Like, I assume, like, you can keep an elk in a sandbox somewhere else.
In your front yard?
You can keep an elk in your pool in the backyard. You could keep a deer in your sandbox in your backyard, but an elk in the sandbox in the backyard, forbidden.
All right.
Rule number 7, in Waverly, North Dakota, horses are forbidden from sleeping in bathtubs.
And what happens if you catch a horse sleeping in a bathtub?
Call cops.
Are they going to arrest the horse?
I get. What if, let's say, Nick, you go for a nice Sunday drive and you come home and the front door is open. It's been kicked in and you see 2 hoof prints on the front of it. And you say, oh no. Oh no. You go inside and everything is a mess. You walk upstairs and there is a horse having a wonderful bubble bath. and you say nay, this is not allowed.
Has it been an hour yet? Can we end this now?
We're almost there. All right, and
that must be what they're afraid of, though.
I do think that that's probably it. And the last rule, one that is, in all honesty, the rule that is the hardest to enforce, especially given our current circumstances, Nick. Operators of underground coal mines in North Dakota must provide an adequate supply of toilet paper for each toilet. I think they've had to shut down coal mines for that reason alone. It's not safety standards, it's the lack of adequate supply of toilet paper.
No kidding. That's a very specific law to have written in.
But if you happen to be out of toilet paper, which I know some of us are concerned about, head to a North Dakotan coal mine and you're set.
It's the law.
And if they do not have it for you, then call the cops. They say there's not enough toilet paper, there's a horse having a bath, and there's an elk in their sandbox. Get us out of here.
What kind of operation is this coal mine running?
This is outrageous. Nonetheless, this is the state that the NHL wants to host. As talked about hosting hockey, that they would hold it in this state without fans.
It's interesting if you look at it on a map because it is kind of like right in the middle of everything.
It is.
And I don't know if there was timing attached to that report of them looking at North Dakota. I still feel like it would be very irresponsible to make anybody travel anywhere in the next 8 weeks.
Very much so. And North Dakota. Here's the other thing though, Nick. Because as it currently stands, like not only are you not allowed to travel, like they're discouraging travel in general, but you are not allowed to travel across countries. Like borders are shut down.
Yeah.
And so the NHL is like, yeah, you can go back to your home country, but to be able to travel and to bring all of the teams and all of these things around, and I can only imagine with the situation we're currently in, whatever city in North Dakota they host this in, probably Waverly, so that they can avoid the horses in bathtubs. The rest of the state, it's full of horses taking baths. That I just see some sort of, if there's going to be an outbreak, the NHL had a mumps outbreak, Nick. They're going to have a COVID outbreak.
It's coming.
So, anyways, I just don't see it happening. You asked me if I thought we were going to do it. I think this season's done. I think we come back next year. What do you think?
I'm in the same boat. The longer this thing drags on, and with some of the projections that the various governments are giving, it's not looking good for any professional sports season right now.
No, I am quite surprised because WWE, they held WrestleMania without fans last night.
By the way, I never knew Hockey Twitter was so interested in the WWE until last night.
Yeah, they love it.
Holy.
Or we're just desperate.
It's also the only live event that's happening right now.
For 3 weeks in a row, I've watched NASCAR drivers play video games on my television, and Hockey Twitter all watched wrestlers last night. So
yeah, interesting.
There we go, Nick. Well, remember, let us know if you are interested in participating in the Beer League project. DM Nick at NickSagan19, at Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter, or email us, mail@thefourthlinepodcast.com, and we can pass that information along. The Alberta Podcast Network is obviously powered by ATB. Is also a great place to go for content. And Nick, one of the things that I think is super interesting is just all of the different pieces that they have there. So, we have our sports podcasts, obviously, and I do believe as of right now, some of them are on a little hiatus because there's a lack of sports happening. So, But if you're looking for other shows, there's tons of other ones that can fill your lack of information. And one of them, Nick, and this is one that's particularly useful right now, is called the EPIC Podcast. And the EPIC Podcast stands for Emergency Preparedness in Canada. So if you want to know what should you be doing, it's with Grayson Crockett and Dr. Josh Beesenson. So an actual doctor can give you some tips. Really smart, really educational. Check that out. You can find more about that at epicpodcast.ca as well, or head on to albertapodcastnetwork.ca and find out more. So until next week.
It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Thank you for listening to my story. Not like you had anything else to do because you're in quarantine.